Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottanam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jamudirayat Nastabhesya Bhadrasund Nityam Bhagavata Sevyam Bhagavate Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavata Naistike. Text 14. Tasmate kena manasam Bhagavam Sattvatam Patim Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Deya Puja Sanityata Tasmate kena manasa Bhagavam Sattvatam Pati Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Deya Puja Sanityata Tasmate kena manasa Bhagavam Sattvatam Pati Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Deya Puja Sanityata. Tasmate kena manasa Bhagavan Sattvatam Pati Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Deya Puja Sanityata. Tasmate kena manasa Bhagavan Sattvatam Pati Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Deya Puja Sanityada. Tasmate kena manasa Bhagavan Sattvatam Pati Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Deya Puja Sanityata. Ladies. Tasmate kena manasa Bhagavam Sattvatam Pati Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Deya Puja Sanityada. Tasmate kena manasa Bhagavan Sattvatam Pati Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Deya Puja Sanityada. But for a translation, Tasmat, therefore, ikena, by one, manasa, attention of the mind, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Sattvatam, of the devotees, Patihi, protector, Shrotavya is to be heard. Kirtitavya, to be glorified. Cha, and Deya, to be remembered. Puja, to be worshipped. Cha, and Nityada, constantly. Translation and purport by Abhay Charanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Therefore, with one-pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. Please repeat. Therefore, with one-pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. Purport. If realization of the absolute truth is the ultimate aim of life, it must be carried out by all means. In any of the above-mentioned castes and orders of life, the four processes, namely glorifying, hearing, remembering, and worshipping, are general occupations. Without these principles of life, one cannot exist. Activities of the living being involve engagement in these four different principles of life. Especially in modern society, all activities are more or less dependent on hearing and glorifying. Any man from any social status becomes a well-known man in human society within a very short time if he is simply glorified by truly or falsely in the daily newspapers. Sometimes political leaders of a particular party are also advertised by newspaper propaganda. And by such a method of glorification, an insignificant man becomes an important man within no time. But such propaganda by false glorification of an unqualified person cannot bring about any good, either for the particular man or for the society. There may be some temporary reaction to such propaganda, but there are no permanent effects. Therefore, such activities are a waste of time. The actual object of glorification is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has created everything manifested before us. We have broadly discussed this fact from the beginning of the Janmadhyasya sloka of this Bhagavatam. The tendency to glorify others or hear others must be turned to the real object of glorification, the Supreme Being. And that will bring happiness. Read the verse again. Tasmast ekene manasa bhagavan sattvatam patihi shotafya kirtidafyascha deya puja sanityada. Therefore, with one-pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. Om Ajnana Timrandasya Chananjala Shanaka Saksaran Militam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Nama Chitchetayamanopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svamrupakadamyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shiru Shiyuda Padakamalam Shirum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Jagajatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parjana Saitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalita Shivishakam Vitam Shah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bandho Jatpate Kopesha Kopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gauranga Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Satadevi Pranamama Haripriye Vankha Kalptravisha Kripa Sinamevisha Patinam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane. Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskatyai Desatarane. Srila Prabhupada Ki. So I'm asking the blessings of all the devotees, especially Prahlad Nanda Maharaj, that so that I can say something that inspires you and helps you in your spiritual life. So here, Srila Prabhupada in a purport condemns the glorification of unqualified persons. But we are glorifying every day qualified persons that Srila Prabhupada has established this daily Guru Puja, the glorification of the Lord's pure devotee, that because the pure devotee, it is said here, the actual object of glorification is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the pure devotee is Sakshadari, is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he is as good as the Supreme Person. I got this booklet a few days ago from the disciples of Kadambakana Maharaj. It's Kadambakana Swami writing about the relation between the Guru and the disciple. That it's in Dutch, but I found some interesting quotes that so this is a question of a reporter to Brahmananda, that Brahmananda Prabhupada disciple. I met him in 2001 to 2002 when I was staying at the MV team in Vrindavan. He was so affectionate, and that's a special soul. So an interviewer asked him, I see that you accept Prabhupada as God. And Brahmananda replied, oh no, that is a false conclusion. In 1970, I've made that error. I thought that Prabhupada was God. Prabhupada is not God, but is just not, is as good as God. But today I'm thinking that Prabhupada is better than God, because he came to save me in the Lower East Side in New York. He came to save me. And after that, Brahmananda started to cry. that yeah, was in 1970, I think. Well, none of us must know that a group of devotees were started to consider Srila Prabhupada as God, and Srila Prabhupada was very, very disturbed by that. But no, the actual object of glorification is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the spiritual master is Saksha Dari. But this verse factually is the essence of the Bhagavatam. It's a summary of the entire Bhagavatam, which is about hearing, glorifying, remembering, and worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavatam, factually, the first canto, is a prelude to the Bhagavatam, an introduction, that Sukadev Goswami starts speaking the Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit in the beginning of the second canto. And he starts with answering a question of Maharaj Parikshit, who is asking, what is the duty of a man about to die? And Sukadev Goswami, that he first makes it clear that the goal of life is not sense gratification. But then he says, Tasma Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaru Arishotavya Kirtitavya Smartavya Shetatabayam. If you want to be fearless when you are going to meet your death in a few days, you must hear, glorify, and remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And from there, the whole Bhagavatam expands. So, the object of glorification is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This second chapter of the first canto is like a summary of all the principles of explained in the Bhagavatam. And later in the Bhagavatam we will see that Srila Prabhupada many times refers again to this second chapter. Many devotees memorize these verses of the second chapter of the first canto, because the whole process of devotional services is explained here in a nutshell. The basic principles we need to understand, because understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is very important. Because we all chant the holy names of Krishna, we do japa, but it's explained in a Harinam Chintamani that Harinam Chintamani is written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and it's in the form of a dialogue between Haridas Thakur and Lord Chaitanya. There Haridas Thakur explains that to chant the holy names successfully, we must be situated in Sambandha Jnana. The chanting of the holy name he explains as 3 stages: Aparat, Namabhas, Sudanam. Aparat is when we commit these 10 offenses. And then if we chant in Aparat, the chanting has very little effect. That although the potencies of the holy name are there, that they are not in the least exaggerated in the scriptures. It burns your karma, it purifies your heart, and it will give you love of God. These are the effects of chanting, but these effects start to become manifest when we chant without offenses. And then it's namabhas. Namabhas is like the sun. There is daylight, but we don't see the sun yet. We come out of the night of this apparat where we don't see anything. And then when we come to namabhas, we give up this offensive mentality. Then gradually we start to see things as they are in the right perspective. That so these stages of the chanting are there, but to come to this namabhas, the purification of the heart, we must be situated in Sambandha Jnana. Sambandha Jnana is the knowledge of our relationship with Krishna, which has three aspects. Knowing who Krishna is. If we know who Krishna is, we know that we are not Krishna. We are, it's Mamavam Sochivelo Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Krishna says we are his part and parcels, his servant. So we must become situated in the position of a servant. And but that knowledge is very important to know correctly who Krishna is. Therefore, that in the previous verse, verse 11, there Sutta Goswami said, Vedanta tattvavitas tattvajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sapyate. The sages have concluded that the absolute truth has three levels: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And they are all the absolute truth, but the absolute truth is only realized in full if we understand Bhagavan. Because Paramatma is an expansion of and Brahman is a spiritual energy. That so those who think that Brahman is the object and the goal, and mostly the Gyanis, that but they get only partial results. They realize factually that I am not a body. They come to the Brahma Bhuta platform. That and then the next stage is Paramatma realization. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Chitatmana prasantasma Paramatma samaita. If the mind is conquered, that becomes peaceful, then we find Paramatma in heart. We can feel Paramatma in heart. And that's the goal of the yogis, which is also a partial realization of the absolute truth. That Paramatma, it's good to know, yeah, Paramatma is in everyone's heart, in everyone's cell. And Paramatma, yeah, Krishna says, Mayadakshana Prakati. I'm controlling material nature as Paramatma. That it's good to know. You have that realization, and beautiful realization. Paramatma is everywhere and controls material nature. But what happens? You stay in this material world. It is an incomplete realization. It's that, and the highest realization is Bhagavan. That this Bhagavan realization is important. That Jiva Goswami explains in his Sandarbhas that Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. If one understands this, then you can understand Bhagavan has his energies. That and that is what the impersonalist cannot understand. That there is Bhagavan and he has his energies. They cannot tell where the energy is coming from or related to that. So these three aspects are here stressed in the second chapter of the first canto. And factually, this is confidential knowledge. And that confidential knowledge we must realize to realize our relationship with Krishna. Then we get to know who Krishna really is. And in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells the same thing through the Bhagavad Gita. It concludes at the end of the 18th chapter. It tells Arjuna, I will give you now confidential knowledge. 1854, Brahma Bhuta Pashnatmana Shosti Nakangsni Samsravesha Bhujam Mad Bhaktim Nabhate Param. It says, yes, Brahma Bhuta, Brahman realization is becoming peaceful. Nashoshati Nakangshati. I'm not lamenting. No hankering, no material desires. Then one can realize I'm spirit, I'm not a body. But this was just the first stage. And that's the stage of the jnanis, and they think that is the goal. And they invent that I'm going to merge with Brahman, I'm becoming Brahman. I'm becoming God, because God is Brahman, they think. But then Krishna says at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, but now I'm going to give you, Arjuna, more confidential knowledge. So Krishna speaks then about the second level, more confidential knowledge. He says, Ishvara sarvabhutam ritisya yunatisri brahmayam sarvabhutanam yandra rudai maya. Krishna says, I'm seated in everyone's heart, and I'm conducting the wanderings of all living entities who are seated on a machine, a yantra, made of material energy. So Krishna says there, I'm also Paramatma. I'm seated in everyone's heart. So that's the more confidential knowledge. But then Krishna goes to the most confidential knowledge. The most confidential knowledge is Man mana bhavamad bhakto machi mam namasko mama vaishya satyam te pratichane prayosime. And Krishna tells us the same what's here mentioned in this verse. Man mana, think of me. This one-pointed attention means it's meant to help us to think of Krishna. And to think of Krishna, we must hear about Krishna. And then we can remember Krishna. Therefore, this verse here explains the entire process. Hearing with attention. And that will also be further explained here in the Bhagavatam. 2 verses further, we have Sushrusha, that is the Shadadanasya Vasdev Gatarishi Syanmat Sevyavya Punyatirtani Shivanat. Then Krishna begins, Sutta Goswami begins to explain the process of devotional service, which begins with hearing with care and attention. That hearing is most important, and with one pointed attention, ekanako nandanam, vyavsatmika buddhi ekanako nandanam, is said in the Bhagavad Gita. With one pointed attention, that always hearing. That means it begins by hearing the Bhagavatam. That daily the Bhagavatam we hear. That Shadadanasya, Srila Prabhupada said, hear with care and attention. That because if we want to develop love for Krishna, we must first give our attention to Krishna. And to give our attention to Krishna, we have to get to hear about Krishna, to know Krishna. That you cannot give attention to something you don't know. You cannot develop a relation with someone whom you don't know. Therefore, it's so important to hear with attention and at the same time serve the Mahatma, the spiritual master. And that is very much stressed here, these two, because we chant every morning Nastvajabat Nityam Bhagavasebhyo Bhagavatuttamasake Bhakti Bhavtinaisake. By regular attendance of the classes of the Srimad Bhagavatam and by render service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is nearly completely destroyed. That this combination, that hearing the Bhagavatam and serving the Mahatma, the rendering service to the spiritual master, to the representative of Krishna. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada explains there are two Bhagavatas. One Bhagavatam is the book Bhagavatam, and the other is the personality Bhagavatam, who lives the Bhagavatam. So we have Srila Prabhupada. He was living, but everything, he was living according to the Bhagavatam. He was a pure devotee. And therefore, we can be sure, if we follow Prabhupada and hear every day the Bhagavatam, gradually we get to know who Krishna is. And getting to know Krishna is not so easy. Krishna says, Bhakti amama bhajanti yavyasasmi tatvatamam tatvatogatva vijate tat anandaram. Krishna can only know by bhakti, pure devotional service. And how do you get this knowledge? That Tesham satarete yuktanam bhajnam pidapurvakam dadami buddhyogantam yenam apayanti me. Krishna says, when you render service with a little love, priti purvakam, Krishna says, dadami, I will give you buddhi yoga, realized knowledge. What does it mean, this Buddha Yoga? It's explained in the next verse. Tesham evanakampatamam jnanacham tama atma. Tesham evanakampatamam jnanacham tama nasajatmi atma bhavastu jnanadipena bhashvata. With the jnanadipena, Krishna says, then with this torch of knowledge from within the heart, I destroy all the ignorance. So that means Krishna gives us realization, is turning the theoretical knowledge in practical knowledge, in realized knowledge. But the problem is this pretty purvakam, a little love. Even to have that little love, if we are, if our heart is still offensive, that full of material desires, it's very difficult to give that little love. But Krishna made special arrangements for us. What is these special arrangements? Tat vinapana partena pariprashna sivya pradiksanti teginam jnanas tat vadakshina. He said, you approach a spiritual master, inquire from the spiritual master, serve him with humility. So this humility is very important. If we serve the instructions of the spiritual master, because that's the relationship with the spiritual master. We follow the instructions of the spiritual master. This Vani is most important. That solidifies our relationship with the spiritual master. Because otherwise the relationship has no much meaning. That you must be prepared to follow the instructions. And if we follow, then Jat Vana Punarmam Evan Yasyosi Pandava Yena Bhutani Ashishan Drakshati Admati Atomati. Then you become gradually Krishna conscious. You start to see how everything is in Krishna and is from Krishna. You start to see Krishna. And then you come on the boat of transcendental knowledge. That gradually you get these realizations. And that so if we follow these instructions of the spiritual master, although we may not have love for Krishna, Krishna will accept it as pretty purvakam, a little love, and our heart will become purified. And that so these principles explained in the Bhagavatam are explaining or help us to understand these principles and explained in Bhagavad Gita. That so therefore it's important every day to hear Bhagavatam and read Bhagavad Gita. That if we read every day Bhagavad Gita and the purports and that a number of verses and purports according to your situation, but read it regularly, also the purports. That by studying the Bhagavatam, I realize when I read Srila Prabhupada's purports is mostly referring to knowledge of the Bhagavatam. It's founded on the knowledge of the Bhagavatam. That not only on the Bhagavatam, there are also other quotations, of course. But I just want to say, by studying the Bhagavatam, I'm realizing that Srila Prabhupada's purpose are based deeply on the scriptures. Between you read a line or a paragraph, and you see where it fits in the Bhagavatam and where it's further explained. So therefore, the study of the Bhagavatam should be an integral part of our devotional life. It's one of the 5 most potent forms of devotional service. And this combination, Bhagavatam and chanting the holy name, is very important, because the Bhagavatam explains what is the object, what should be the object of our meditation, and we start to understand gradually who Krishna is by the study of the Bhagavatam. And by that, and not only that, the Bhagavatam will explain us how to approach Krishna in our relationship, how to develop our relationship. Queen Kunti explains that it begins with praying feelingly. She says to pray feelingly to the Supreme Lord, you must be materially exhausted. Means don't be attached to your education, to your birth, to your beauty, to your knowledge. These are all temporary things which are like intoxications. Know that the easy way to make spiritual advancement, and the first-class way, is to hear daily the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada explains that there's first-class learning, second-class learning, and third-class learning. The first-class learning is, I'm hearing that stealing is bad, and okay, I'm not going to do it. The second class learning is, I'm hearing that stealing is bad, but I've still the tendency, but then I see someone is arrested, and I say, okay, I'm not going to do it. And third class learning is, I hear that stealing is bad, that I see someone arrested, but still I want to steal. And I will only stop stealing when I'm arrested myself. So first class learning is hearing daily the Bhagavatam. If we are not learning in that way, Krishna may also help us. But it will be a hard learning. That 1088.8 in the Bhagavatam, Krishna explains what this hard learning means. That he says, when one is really attached to something and does not want it to let go, I will take away what he's attached to. All his wealth, all his opulence is what he's attached to. It's like a child. A child is playing with toys, and the mother says, you have to come for dinner. And the child says, no, I want to play. And the mother says it a second time, come for dinner. And the child doesn't come. And the third time, the mother comes and takes the toy away. And the child cries. The mother takes the child by the hand, and it has to take dinner. So that's the soft and that's the hard way. So these were some aspects or points that came to mind when I was reading and studying this verse. So, any comments, Mahat? No. Any questions, comments? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for inspiring lecture. I just wanted to ask about these three classes of learning. So I just wanted to ask for some advices. How can we try? How can we learn to learn only by hearing, so that we wouldn't have to, so that we could actually learn by hearing. So what is that enables us to be this like first class to learn?
Yeah, that factually, this learning takes place if we are following Srila Prabhupada's instruction to have everyday Bhagavatam. Because, but of course, it's also a question of taking it serious. My Guru Maharaj Bhakti Maharaj told all the disciples, and we are not able to follow it, but anyway, but he told us the day before the Bhagavatam class, you need to read the verse and purport of the verse that will be discussed the next day. You read it the day before, and you memorize the verse every day. Anyway, we could not follow it, but it means we have to be really serious in the study of the Bhagavatam. And the Bhagavatam class is important. If we only read, it's also good. We come in contact with Prabhupada's teachings, but it's more powerful if we discuss it, because then there is an exchange of realizations, and it turns our heart, and we, because it's a process. It's a process you hear, and then you contemplate of what is being said. Then the question comes, what is therein for me? How do I bring that into practice? Because theoretical knowledge has no much use. It must become practical. It must go from jnana to vijnana, and that's a process. And then, if you don't know how to practice it, well, what's the value? You ask questions, and devotees will clarify, and then we come to the point, okay, that I have to change in my life, this and that. So it's a process, but that process really works if we discuss it in association of devotees. So this is a personal experience that I followed the Bhakti Vaibhava and the Bhakti Vedanta at the VIG. That was from 2001 till 2011. Every year I was 2-3 months in Vrindavan and was hearing from Bhurijan Prabhu and Mother Narayani and discussion with the devotees. And it changed my life. It's life-changing, this Bhagavatam. And that will help us to adopt the right attitude for chanting, that we sing every morning, Trinata Pishnutsinata Saisnena Amana Manadina Kirtanias Nasadari Nadanam Najan Nasundarim Kavdavachi Sakami Mama Jamami Jamamishve Bhavda Bhakti Rahaituki. That is verse 3 and 4 of the Shikshastikam. And they describe the inner mood you must have to chant properly. And hearing the Bhagavatam helps you to develop that mode and overcome these offenses. That, yeah, that's what I could say. Does that help? Thank you. Good. Thank you very much. Shantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.